1,857, 1,857 live gate of 429,000. The bonuses tonight were $40,000. Sub of the night, Ruben Duran. Fight of the night, Kyle Kingsbury of Fabio Maldonado. And KO of the night, the man of the night, Tony Ferguson. So at this time, we will open up the questions. Please raise your hand and we'll go from there.
Clay, I just want to first ask you, what was your thoughts when you're looking at and sort of breaking things down how you want to fight that fight?
Grappling is going to be the key. You know, he's a very long-range striker, very creative, one of the most imaginative strikers that I've seen in the lightweight division. As you see, I struggled with Kenny Florian. I didn't want to make that same mistake. We caught him in the exchange when his hands were up and he was throwing punches. I was shooting him down, trying not to hit him in the face.
I want to ask you about his decision. Do you commend a guy like that, a young kid that has a championship shot, and he fights a veteran like you?
Absolutely. He's very well spoken. I've been a fan of his before we even got to fight. He fought a friend and a former opponent of mine, Bart Palashevsky, and kind of little Midwest fun. You know what I mean? You get to see your traditional striker. Growing up, coming through the WEC and beating up guys in the local shows, and you get to see your traditional wrestler. When I got to fight in the Midwest and things like that, and we got to face off. But yeah, like I said, I was a fan. I remember seeing him. We'd always say what's up when I was watching the WEC fight. So very well spoken. He's got a very bright future.
And how do you just give him credit for taking the fight? Because it would have been easy with the championship just to sit on it. He didn't.
Absolutely. A young man like Anthony Pettis is not one of those guys that like to sit around. He's a momentum fighter. He's very confident in his skills, and he's got, like I said, a very bright future. And I commend him for not sitting back and waiting. Who knows? It could be 6 months to a year now before Frankie and Gray maybe square off again. So ring rust is it's hard to shake off.
And Anthony, if I could ask you, do you regret the decision now that you know the outcome of the fight?
No, not at all, man. I feel I had some holes in my game, and like Vito and Greg Jackson did a good job of having a good game plan, and I had to go back to the and see whatever.
And then the last thing, I'll let somebody else ask. I want to ask you about the kick on the ground in the first round, and maybe ask both of you guys about that. That was kind of an athletic move. If you could just explain what that was and what was going on there.
I don't remember what kick you're talking about.
You were on the ground, and you kind of tried to kick him from the ground, and it was.
I think I was just fighting.
It was close. I know I was just running. He kicked me up against the cage, and he's got thunder kicks, and he's very creative, a lot of fun.
Clay, obviously this kind of complicates the lightweight division title picture, but what are your thoughts? Do you think you've done enough to earn that shot? And
I didn't want to see it go to the judges. Obviously a dominating victory. The finish would have been looked more highly in the eyes of the UFC of Dana White and Joe Silva who picked the fight. So it's interesting now. Ben Henderson and Jim Miller. Who knows? Jim Miller, I think it could be the front runner, but I think everyone that has seen me fight knows that I've probably fought the toughest competition in the lightweight division. We never have walked through fights. We always fight the best competition, like Anthony Pettis, and I would love to get that shot. I've paid my dues. I've been here 5 years in October. 9-5 in the UFC does not sit well with me. It's an average record at best for me. You know what I mean? But I just want to get in there and show the world what the most exciting lightweight fighter is all about.
Ed, this is a tremendous win for you. It's been 2 years, and wow. How'd you feel with that win? And where do you think this leads to for you?
I'm just so excited to be back and prove that I belong here still with all the questions, and the life-changing injury, possibly career-ending injury. I'm just excited to be back, and I think it can throw me back right in the mix from the middleweight division. I'm ready to make a run.
What did you think of Kendall Grove's recent loss to Tim Boesch? Have you been following him since you two were the...
Yeah, for sure. I was a little bummed. I was hoping he'd go on a little run too, so we could have a big rematch and get some hype behind it. I was bummed to see him lose, but at the same time, I've trained with Tim, so I was proud to see him win as well.
Tony, welcome. You're officially in the UFC. Who are you looking at? Is there somebody you'd really like to face as your first real UFC opponent?
Well, first, my fiance, I think she wants to pick a bone with me. I've been kind of like a Sheldor, but honestly, I saw Amir Sadal over there, and I knew that he was, he was a pretty big guy. That was from the Ultimate Fighter, but I think that would be a pretty good little start right there. It doesn't matter who gets put in front of me. I have great coaches that are going to get me ready for any kind of fight. It took me a little bit to get used to being in front of everybody, but I think I do belong here. I know I do. Got the trophy now to prove it.
Ed, I'm over here. Did mean anything to you to make this comeback on the Ultimate Fighter finale, sort of coming full circle in that sense?
Yeah, for sure. It was cool to be here on the finale with you guys coming off season 13. 10 seasons after mine. It's kind of crazy. But no, it meant a lot, and I got the opportunity to be on the main card. If it was a big pay-per-view, I may not have had that opportunity. So to get out there and let the people know that I'm still fighting. When you're not on TV for a while, people tend to forget you. So it's good to have that opportunity.
And do you feel that it takes a while to sort of change whatever image that you come up with coming off the show? Would that be sort of a cautionary tale maybe for Tony and Chris as they start?
Yeah, for sure, man. I still I remember I sent out a tweet saying, "Hey, man, give me some followers," and there were some guys on there like, "If you weren't such a jerk on the Ultimate Fighter 3 10 years ago, maybe I would," So people hold that stuff against you, But on that show, man, there's a lot of emotions going, and sometimes you can make mistakes and it can make yourself look bad when you're not a bad dude. You know what I mean? I think we're all good dudes, and being on that show brings the worst and the best out of you.
I have a question for Chris. Chris, you were able to land, left hook was finding a home pretty regularly, right? And it seemed like that you were just throwing everything in your arsenal. How did you feel like your performance was going on there?
Well, I was underestimated the whole season throughout the show. I was looking at this guy like, hey, from what Lou Pauly was telling everyone, I was just basically someone they could just walk through, and I think Javier thought that, and then when Shamar was up, fighting me, I think he thought he was gonna go right through me too, and that was my real statement. I think Chuck came in after the fight, and he was just kind of amazed, like, dude, you got way better. And I said, well, what do you think I did, Chuck? You think I just basically got off the show and just started partying? No, I took 2 days off, and I went right back in the gym, but I wasn't posting stuff on Facebook or Twitter like I was training because I wanted people to think I wasn't doing anything. But I had a solid camp. I brought 2 guys in, Casey Ryan and Jake Mapes, both basically brown and black belts in jiu-jitsu. They're 6'5", great strikers, resembles Chuck a lot. And it was a hard thing because me and Chuck are friends, We basically, he was one of the few people that I kept in contact with when the show ended. We were texting back and forth, and then one day we got a call from Joe Silva saying, hey, I got good news. You're going to be fighting your buddy Chuck O'Neal. And I'm just like, I sent basically Chuck a text and said, hey, we're fighting. And he's like, I know. And then the text and the phone call stopped for 6 weeks, and then we met. But it was a weird deal because it's hard fighting a friend, but at the same time, it's part of the show, And I got a lot of slack that people thought I was, giving information to the other team on the show and everything like this, and I was a double agent spy. But yeah, I mean, I was watching everybody on the show because the thing is about that house, you never know who you're gonna fight. You could be fighting someone on the other team, you could be fighting someone on your team, and it really can, like Ed said, it can really do a toll on you being in that house for 6 weeks, not having any support network, not having any TV, not having none of that stuff. You start to go crazy.
Was it hard for you to go for the finish tonight? Did you feel like you could have finished him out there?
The opportunity, presented itself, and I wanted to go for the finish, but then at the same time, my whole goal, first and foremost, was just to fight in the UFC. I remember when I was a kid in '93 watching it and seeing the first UFC, and then here I am fighting in the UFC. It was just kind of a big shock. Yeah, the finish could have happened. There's definitely holes and stuff that I could work on. But I was happy with my performance, but there's always room for improvement.
And a question for Clay. Clay, were you surprised at all from anything from Anthony? He really worked a lot off of his back really well, triangles, arm bars, really throwing up a lot of jiu-jitsu.
He's the trickiest guy I've fought off. He's got the most tricky guard I've ever fought. I was just throwing, I must have defended 10, 12 triangles, arm bars, and he hit me lights out a couple times on the bottom. I ain't gonna lie, kicked me in the back of the head, punched me, elbowed me, tough as nails. And like I said, I got a real tricky guard and a super talented kid.
Hey Clay, your wins kind of sparked a little bit of debate. You know, people are talking about the role of wrestling in MMA, and you know, were you doing enough to win? When you looked at that fight, what can you point to as to why you took every round?
Wrestling wins championships. Look at most of the champs right now, some of the guys that have a hard time. Anderson Silva is one of my favorite fighters. You've seen he has trouble with good wrestlers like Chael Sonnen. Cain Velasquez is one of the best wrestlers out there. George St. Pierre, phenom. He's one of those athletes that comes around once every 100 years. The guy can probably go wrestling in the Olympics right now. You saw he used to struggle with wrestling, now he's the master of it. Jose Aldo, you know, has a couple holes in his game, but, you know, we've seen, besides maybe his gas tank, at wrestling, you know, could be wrestling. Mark Hominick is not a great wrestler, and he's taking it down. There's no secret anymore. Wrestling wins championships. I got a lot of work on my wrestling. I had a lot of work on my top game, on my hands, obviously. I was tentative. And, you know, he had me backing up for a little bit, and then we were kind of going back and forth. He's very rangy, and I was just kind of tentative, you know, with his kicks and punches and things like that.
And if I could ask Anthony about that as well, you know, when the fight was over, your body language, you know, it looked like you knew you had lost the fight, but was there any part of you that thought maybe, hey, maybe I did do enough off my back, maybe my strikes were enough? Was there any part that, or did you know?
I think I know the control-wise. I mean, I felt that he was on top. He did a good job staying on top. I couldn't get my submissions off. I mean, I attempted a lot. I hit him a lot. It's just I understand how the game works, and if he controls you, you lose the round. So.
TV, and I got Bruce Buffer in the middle. I got Joe Rogan interviewing. It's a surreal experience, you know. So I'm taking it all in. I'm having as much fun as possible, and you know, I bust my ass, and I work really, really hard at what I do. I'm not the strongest guy out there. I'm not the fastest guy, but I listen and I work hard, you know. And I talked to Dominic Cruz about a month ago, because I went over there to Alliance and did some training, you know, for this fight and for a little bit. And I just said, you know, how'd you become champ? He's like, it's really easy, man. I work really hard and I listen. And anybody that knows Dominic, that's what he does. The guy he's always in the gym, he's always working, he's always listening. You know, he fights on Saturday, he's back in the gym on Monday. You know, I've heard the same thing about GSP. If you want to be a champion, if you want to be good at this, you got to basically put in the work. And you got to listen to your coaches, and you got to have a team put together. It's not one of these things you can just do solo.
Questions for Clay. Clay, after the second round, it looked like Anthony had you in an armbar. How close was that to getting tapped?
We were real sweaty. Like I said, he's got great transitions. I think we went from armbar to almost omoplata or gomoplata, whatever. Like I said, the kid's super slick off his back, and I was just happy to get out. And I think from there we went on our feet again, and he might have kicked me again, but I knew the ground game is where I was going to be, you know, at my top.
Thanks, guys.
In-N-Out Burger. Do it.
Yes, 4x4.
What are you jerking about? I go into the app when I come to New York. I make so much with Jerry's. Bring the big one. All right. You want me to take over for this first? You know what? I'll take it down for Yeah, I heard Rick is beautiful, and they let you go to high school and then connect. Basically, I think Aaron let you do a stopover for free in the morning, and then you want to go to a destination in Europe. So you get to I think they're going to July. I got already on my path. Slack off. Procrastination. Yeah, man. Hey, I'm sorry. Yeah. What do I do?